What is the greatest real-life plot twist in all of history? At the start of the Cold War, Henry Murray developed a personality profiling test to crack Soviet spies with psychological warfare and select which spies are ready to be sent out into the field. As part of Project MKUltra, he began experimenting on Harvard sophomores. He set one student as the control, after he proved to be a completely predictable conformist, and named him Lawful. Long story short, the latter half of the experiment involved having the student prepare an essay on his core beliefs as a person for a friendly debate. Instead, Murray had an aggressive interrogator come in and basically tear his beliefs to pieces, mocking everything he stood for, and systematically picking apart every line in the essay to see what it took to get him to react. But he didn't. It just broke him, made him into a mess of a person, and left him having to pull his whole life back together again. He graduated, but then turned in his degree only a couple years later, and moved to the woods where he lived for decades. In all that time, he kept writing his essay, and slowly, he became so sure of his beliefs, so convinced that they were right, that he thought that if the nation didn't read it, we would be irreparably lost as a society. So, he set out to make sure that everyone heard what he had to say, and sure enough, Lawful's Industrial Society and Its Future has become one of the most well-known essays written in the last century. In fact, you've probably read some of it, although, you probably know it better as the Unabomber Manifesto. On the 28th of June, 1914, Gavrilo Princip's group the Black Hand fed up the first time when it came time to assassinate Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo. His colleague was to throw a grenade under the carriage as the Archduke and his wife passed over. The grenade delayed and blew up as the next car came by. He panicked, swallowed a cyanide pill, and jumped in a nearby river. Except the cyanide pill just made him vomit, and the river was 6 inches deep, so he was caught pretty easily. Gavrilo Princip was pretty damn dejected and went to get some food at a local restaurant at this time. After the assassination attempt, Archduke Franz Ferdinand told his driver to head to the hospital where he and his wife could visit those injured from the failed plot on his life. Cars hadn't been around for too long, so when the driver got lost and tried to reverse the car, it stalled right in front of the restaurant where Princip was finishing lunch. He walked outside, saw the Archduke standing there, and fired into his neck. The most revolutionary event of the 20th century was a do-over. It's definitely Darius the Great's ascension to the throne of Persia. Basically, he was caught literally red-handed standing over his dead predecessor with a knife. "Osh," thought Darius. "Osh," said the Magi. "Call the guards. This guy just murdered the emperor." "Whoa guys, listen," interrupted Darius. "I know what this looks like, but it's not what it looks like. Not only did I not kill the emperor, but I can tell you who did kill him. It was this dead moth fair right here, who I realize looks quite a bit like the emperor, but what you need to understand here is that he was actually a shape-shifting wizard, right? So he killed the king and pod peopled his way to the throne, and all you guys are just lucky that you had someone like me here to avenge the rightful ruler, who I totally misdeally." The Magi consulted, and with a chorus of "why would someone lie about something like that?" they unanimously decided to raise Darius the Wizard Slayer to the throne of Persia. When Jimmy Kimmel revealed that he was behind the twerk fail video. When King Louis V suggested the guillotine be triangular shaped, then the people used it to kill him. "Hey, guys, I think it would be great if we made it like a triangle." "Sort of. Great idea. Come here a second. Wait, no." Backstory: there was a samurai in Japan, circa 1600, named Miyamoto Musashi, who was frequently late to his duels. He was very skilled and world-renowned as one of the most talented samurai to have ever lived. One day, he decided to challenge the leader of the Yoshioka school, Seijiro, to a duel. Seijiro agreed, and as always, Musashi came late. He struck Seijiro with a single blow, crippling his arm and knocking him out. Seijiro decided to pass ownership of the school down to Denshichi, who immediately challenged Musashi back for revenge. Again, Musashi arrived late, disarmed and promptly defeated Denshichi. Here is where the plot twist comes into play. The head of the Yoshioka school is now the 12-year-old son of Denshichi, Matoshichiro. He, and his entire force of archers, musketeers, and swordsmen, challenged Musashi to a final duel. Musashi decides that this time he is to arrive early and hide nearby, Fantastic. So when Matashitaro and his army come marching by to the place where the duel is to occur, expecting a tardy Musashi as always, he springs from his hiding spot and runs to Matashitaro, completely demolishing this 12-year-old kid. He then escapes from the force by drawing his second sword. TL. Dr. Samurai defeats an entire lineage of a martial arts school by changing from his usual routine of showing up late. Lee Sun-sin. Pretty much all of this guy's life was an epic twist. He joined the Korean military back in the 1500s when they were being invaded by Japan. He became a top commander and helped save his nation from being conquered by the Japanese. Then his jealous rivals had him framed, tortured, and imprisoned. When he was released from prison, he re-enlisted in the military at the lowest rank, then was promoted all the way back up to commander and once again saved his nation from defeat against impossible odds. That a bunch of college kids would beat the Soviet army in the Miracle on Ice, the way they made it through the prelims and into the medal round, no one thought they had a shot. Besides them, Americans were so enthusiastic and supportive of the US team, but no one thought they could actually do it. In my opinion, it is and will forever be the greatest game ever played. The Cold War, the US hostages in Iran, the economy. There will never be a series of events that equates to those. It may not be the most significant event in history, but I do think it was the greatest twist. Japan attacking Pearl Harbor. That was a WTF just happened moment. If WW2 had been a book series, I would have been annoyed by how it ended. Oh, so the Americans just invented this city vaporizing superweapon and that's the end? Since when was I reading a science fiction story? The author obviously got bored and didn't want to spend another book or two writing about the invasion of Japan. In 1941, the tomb of Timur Khan was exhumed by Soviet anthropologists. Upon opening the tomb, an inscription within it wrote, "Whoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." Nevertheless, 2 days later Adolf Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, which was the largest military invasion of all time, and caused more death and destruction than other nation that fought in the war would suffer. Saddam Hussein not having WMDs has to rank up their 4 great plot twists of the last 40 years. He used them in the Iran-Iraq war, used them against his own people, spent the 90s effing with UN inspectors, and when given a chance to come clean, chooses bravado one last time. Edit. Plus we had the receipts from the French and German contractors who helped set him up. It was pretty thin evidence that we ultimately used to go into Iraq, but everyone was surprised that we found nothing. Bonus plot twist is Gaddafi coming clean and everyone not having a clue that Libya was in the game. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand that led to World War I and arguably World War II. 6 Bosnian Serbs planned an attack on his motorcade along a route from Ilid Zapata to Sarajevo. The first 2 along the route had bombs but failed to act. The third conspirator along the route, Abranovi, tossed a grenade at Franz's vehicle, which bounced off the back of the convertible cover and blew up in the street, wounding 20 people. Abranovi, having failed, swallowed a cyanide pill and jumped into a nearby river. Well, the cyanide pill failed and the river was only 13 centimeters deep due to hot weather. A crowd beat him and took him into custody. The motorcade raced away and the remaining 3 assassins failed to act, surviving the attack. Ferdinand, being a bad A, decided to go to the hospital to visit the 20 wounded, instead of going into hiding. While Franz was traveling to the hospital, Gavrilo Princip, one of the 6 conspirators, was pissed off BC of the botched assassination and went to go get some food at Schiller's Delicatessen. On the way to the hospital, Franz's driver took a wrong turn and had to reverse the car. The car stalled as many old models did when going in reverse. Where did it stall, you ask? Right in front of Schiller's Delicatessen for awaiting Gavrilo Princip. Princip saw the car, walked outside and shot Ferdinand and his wife dead. Long story short, Franz Ferdinand's car stalled right in front of the restaurant where the assassin just so happened to be. This is one of the greatest and deadliest coincidences in human history, leading to WW1, WW2 and life as we know it today. Born in 1880, Helen Keller was the daughter of a former Confederate officer turned newspaper editor. Though she was born quite healthy, a bout of scarlet fever at 19 months of age nearly killed her. She survived, but the fever left baby Helen deaf, dumb and blind. Her father wrote to ask Alexander Graham Bell for help. Bell, in turn, contacted friends at Boston's Perkins Institute for the Blind. They sent their best pupil, Annie Sullivan, to Helen. And you know the story from there, with maybe one exception. It wasn't the movie makers who gave Annie Sullivan the title of the miracle worker. It was Mark Twain. That's the story you know, the one made into countless movies. Girl loses 3 senses. Girl helps girl. Girl overcomes handicaps and learns to speak, read and write. By the way, Helen Keller even graduated from Radcliffe College in 1904. Now here's my question for you. What did Helen Keller do between her graduation from Radcliffe in 1904 and her death in 1968? After all, this incredible woman overcame every obstacle life had thrown in her path. So, what's the lesson in this story? If she didn't go on to accomplish something really important, if she was strong enough to survive her ordeals, but then did nothing else in her life with that force of mind, doesn't that make her struggle insignificant? Okay, maybe you know that Helen Keller gave lectures. She did. Maybe you know that she wrote books. Did that, too. Now, what did she speak and write about? Well, here's how a typical bio of Helen Keller reads. She championed women's rights, fought for the cause of workers and equality for minorities. This from another bio. She spoke out against things such as child labor and capital punishment. Good God, it only gets better. Kids, a woman overcomes tremendous obstacles, then uses her new talents to champion the causes of underdogs. Makes you wonder why she had that FBI file, doesn't it? That's the problem with the way we tell our American history. It's so darn innocuous and sanitized. Let me give you a little list of Helen Keller's writings and speeches. 1912, How I Became a Socialist. 1914, Brutal Treatment of the Unemployed. 1915, The Menace of Our Military. 1916, Strike Against the Great War, and the same year, Why I Became a Member of the International Workers of the World. 1919, End the Blockade of Soviet Russia. 1921, Help Soviet Russia. 1929, The Spirit of Lenin. That's right. Helen Keller as an adult was a revolutionary socialist and, according to J. Edgar Hoover, a communist. To boot. Let me quote to you from an article Keller wrote in 1912, titled How I Became a Socialist. The first book I read was Wells' New World for Old. By the way, Annie Sullivan gave her that book. Again from that article. I am no worshipper of cloth of any color, but I love the red flag and what it symbolizes to me and other socialists. I have a red flag hanging in my study. She also uses the term comrades in that writing to describe her close friends. In 1916 she gave a speech at Carnegie Hall, called Strike Against the War. Some excerpts. We are facing a grave crisis in our national life. The few who profit from the labor of the masses want to organize those workers into an army which will protect only the interests of the capitalists. I wonder why they left that out of the movie. She went on to say, Congress is not preparing to defend the people of the United States. It is only planning to protect the capital of American speculators and investors. Every modern war has had its root in exploitation, and your vote will not make a free man out of a wage slave. Of course, Helen Keller said and did all that when she was just a mere socialist. In 1916 she joined the International Workers of the World, a group which made socialism look nearly right-wing Republican. In an interview with Barbara Bindley, published in the New York Tribune on the 16th of January, 1916, Helen talked about her political shift to the extreme far left, admitting that she was a disciple of Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto. Quoting her, from that interview, I became an IWW because I found out that the Socialist Party was too slow. Bindley asks, what are you committed to, education or evolution? Keller replies, revolution. We have tried peace education for 1,900 years, and it has failed. Let us try revolution and see what it will do now. In 1921 she wrote, I love Russia and all who stand loyally by her in her mighty wrestlings with the giant powers of ignorance and imperialist greed. Oh, why cannot the workers see that the cause of Russia is their cause? In her book, Midstream, My Later Life, published in 1929, Keller writes, I see the furrow Lenin left sown with the unshatterable seed of a new life for mankind. A new star has risen in the east. It is Russia and it will warm the world. Now let's be fair. During Helen Keller's early life, working in America didn't give the average person the life as we know it today. A job meant a 60-hour week, and most paid wages too low to support a family. The workplace was dangerous, but if you were hurt, no disability pay kicked in. Retirement plans, even social security hadn't been thought of. Many struggling people, therefore, found it easy to believe in the concept of a workers' paradise in Russia. Ronald Reagan was even taken in, but the Communist Party turned down his application for membership. They considered him a flake. Helen Keller didn't quit talking or writing about socialist and communist issues. Finally, in 1943, the FBI opened a file on her. They couldn't tell whether she was a communist, a Nazi, or a fascist, but by FBI standards they knew she was something really rotten. Helen Keller passed away in 1968. Today she's idolized by millions, and her courage in overcoming her handicaps is an inspiration to us all. But, by not teaching them anything about Helen Keller's life after she overcame those tremendous hurdles, we're telling our children that her later life was without meaning. And that's not true. You see, those ideals she talked about in her radical days are reality today. Better wages, better working conditions, the end of child labor, women's suffrage, help for the handicapped, and retirement benefits. They seemed radical at the time, but now they are planks in any good candidate's campaign platform. Yet, in her time, she was considered a dangerous radical, and we can't teach kids in our schools to admire that. Now can we? You never knew she was a radical. You didn't know her political beliefs. You didn't know she helped found the American Civil Liberties Union, or that she gave money to help the NAACP in the 20s. You're just like me, still mentally picturing Patty Duke with her hand in the stream of pump water, having the word spelled out in her hand by Anne Bancroft's fingers. Past that, history has cleaned the slate of what she did, but we don't have to remain ignorant. Helen Keller called the nation to a workers' revolution. She pitched a battle, in print, in speech and in the streets, against the evils of capitalism. I'll leave today's story with two of Helen Keller's sayings, one humorous and one brilliant. I think God made woman foolish so that she might be a suitable companion for a man. And my personal favorite, people do not like to think, for if one thinks, one must reach conclusions, and conclusions are not always pleasant. America's most cherished radical and communist, Helen Keller.